for the disturbance. So I was telling you about the elements of good style, right? This is what we have to discuss for our today's session. So here we go without further delay, right? So what are the elements of good style? Among them, we have discussed language. We have already discussed word choice, vocabulary, right? Techniques, and in our last session, we also discussed the things related to it, right? Uh, that we call the elements of good style. Today, we have got clarity and consistency, right? For our uh, topic, uh, clarity and consistency in document writing. So general considerations are, right? First of all, use the terms of art. There are words which have a precise and defined legal meanings. They may not be familiar to the layperson. Layperson means common people, but cannot be replaced by the words. For example, you when writing a science report, right, you use particular words like paper, like retort, like laboratory, like PCR, like RNA, etc. So you have to use the exact those terms, right? Because you do not replace or you cannot replace all those terms, right? Then a use of the defined terms. Many legal documenting contain definition section in which the parties agree the certain words used repetitively throughout the document shall have an agreed meaning, right? Then use of obscure legal phrasing, right? This can be confusing to the layman, right? Either simply because the language is unfamiliar or because the words used have a different meaning in ordinary English, right? Then repeated use of the word shall and must to express obligation and may to express discretions, right? Then we have got the next thing, that is clarity. And I have already told you what does the clarity mean. What does the clarity mean?
Difference or distinction between the words.
Right. That mean the clarity of ideas, the clarity of the meaning, the clarity of the expression, the clarity of the thoughts. It has got different levels, right? So, what are the key elements in clarity? First of all, it has got clear thinking. Then, clarity of writing usually follows clarity of thought at the same time. Then, saying what you want to say as simply as possible. Then, saying it in such a way that the people you are writing for will understand it. Consider the needs of the readers. We have already discussed the reader centered need yesterday. Keep it as short as possible, right? So this
Excuse
what
excuse me
this
sir, screen share नहीं हो रही आपकी.
well, it is not shared.
नहीं
Well,
हो रही है
Yes sir.
here I have shared it with
सर
all.
हो रही
Okay, okay, sorry, I seek your pardon. Then shall we start? Is it visible? It
यस
is.
सर
Is it
यस सर
okay? So
Yes,
the
sir.
next thing, the next thing is planning. Right after the clarity, we have got the planning. So in planning, right, you need to start by considering overall purpose, as we have already discussed the objectives, right, yesterday of your document or letter. Before starting to draft a document, you need to be sure that you have a clear idea of what the document is supposed to achieve and whether there are any problems that need to be overcome to allow it to be achieved, right? Then the things that are involved in the planning Have you taken your client's full instruction? Have you all the relevant background information? What is your client's main goal or concern that the audience want to have? Here, clients means our client stands for the audience or the reader. Then what are the main facts which provide the backbone of the document? What is the applicable law, or how does it affect the drafting methodology? Then what the next is, are there any good alternatives for the client, right? Draft the document in your native language and have it translated and verified. Engage the service of native English speaker lawyers as consultant in respective of the case, right? This is not related to, this is related to the law graduates, all this, right? Draft the document best as you can in English and have a legally qualified English native speaker. Then are there any useful precedents writing, like generic legal document of such type? Then the words. The next thing that you have to deal is with the words. Then whether writing documents or correspondence, the following guidelines are relevant. Use the words that convey your meaning, right? We have already talked about the words 3 times, right? Use all those words that can best possible convey your meaning, your expression of your thought, and at the same time they have got some relevance with the culture, with the norms, with the practices of the audience or of the reader. Then the next thing, use ordinary English words where possible. Use most common familiar words that are possible. Do not use alien or remote words which the reader cannot understand. Then avoid negative structures. We have yesterday we have discussed the constructive and destructive use of language, right? So always use positive constructive languages or constructive side or aspect of the language that can even convey the negative things beautifully, right? Not unreasonable, not impossible, not unjustifiable, not unthinkable, not negligible. Such structures make what you are saying less clear and definite. These are some of the examples you can have here, right? Then the next thing is the sentences. Sentences, what kind of sentences do we need to use, right? Keep sentences short where possible, right? Keep sentences where as short as possible, right? And keep them simple, right? But the structure of the sentences should be, or it can be compound, complex, preferably for a mature document. Then the next thing is take care with the use of which, right? Run over, we call this type of use as a run over thing, right? This is a beautiful connector that we use for the relative clauses or sometimes as a connector, but its overuse should be avoided. For example, you can see here an example. The situation are governed by agreements which are made between different entities. Right, may be reduced to, these situations are governed by agreements between different parties, right? You can see here in the second example, it has been reduced, right? Use pronouns where possible. Use pronouns where possible, right? You can see here, right? In 2010, the terms and the conditions for the provision of services within the Malta work and woodwork sectors are now in force. The 2010 terms and conditions for the provisions of services within it, the Malta work and woodwork sectors replace large number of different agreements previously used, right? So you can see here in this example, it has been repeatedly used, right? So to avoid this kind of repetition, you can also use the pronouns, right? That can best express it. For example, you can here see here, right? 3 lines, right? And here it has been after the use of the pronouns, it is simply reduced to 2 lines. Rather, you can find here the economy of words and a beautiful expression. The 2010s terms and conditions for the provision of services with the Malta work and woodwork sectors are now in force. They replace the large number of different agreements previously used, right? Or even better, you can see here, this is another example, right? The terms and conditions for the provision of services within the Malta and woodwork sectors are now in force and replace
Sir,
the,
it's metal work.
sorry,
Sir, it's metal work and woodwork.
yes, 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 true, right?
Okay, sir.
Number of different agreements previously used, right? Then you can see from all these 3 examples how the pronouns have been introduced and how beautifully the expression has been expressed in the most refined form here, right? Then your each sentence, as we believe that sentence is an independent unit of a thought, it is a complete thought, right? So your each sentence should have an idea, right? For example, you can see here, unless the order is for the goods described in appendix 3x shall deliver the goods to Y within 7 days, right? And you can see here, X shall deliver the goods to Y within 7 days of an order being received. Unless order is for the goods described in appendix 3, right? So one sentence, one idea, and the paraphernalia of the sentence or the scheme of the sentence you can see here. Then the next thing is, at the same time, and this sentence, the company, the headquarters of which are in Oxford, specializes in pharmaceutical products and made a record profit last year. The company specializes in pharmaceutical products. Its headquarters are in Oxford, and it made the record profit last year, right? So watch how the phrases has been reorganized and the expression becomes beautiful. Then use the active voice where possible. Try even the modern practices toward the plain or modern English, right? They lay stress on the use of active voice instead of passive voice. So try to use as much as possible active voice sentences as you can, and avoid using passive voice sentences. Then the next thing is use positive phrases where possible, right? A positive phrase is usually better than a negative one. For example, clause 2 shall apply only if is clearer than clause 2 shall not apply unless, right? However, restrictions are difficult to express in the positive rather than the negative without either. Then these are some of the examples of it you can see, right? Then the last thing that is there, the paragraphs, right? The paragraphs should not be defined by length. They are better treated as units of thought. In other words, each paragraph should deal a single thought or topic. Change paragraphs when shifting to a new thought or topics. And we have already discussed the scheme of the paragraphs, right? A paragraph usually starts with a central idea, the main idea, the topic sentence. Then we have got the bridge, then we have got the sporting details, body, and then at the end conclusion, right? So that was all from my side. Today we try to explore the elements of style, which are number one, clarity, and number two, consistency, right? For effectiveness, right? So there are several general considerations that you have to consider. Then clarity is there, then planning is there, right? After the planning, right, we have got the word choice is there, right? And the words that we should use, right, that can best convey meanings, right? Use ordinary English, right? Do not use specialized kind of English. Then avoid negative structures, rather use positive, constructive language, right? Then we have got sentences, right? Try to use sentences simple and keep them as short as possible. Then take care of the some pronouns like which, right? They are overused, right, in our writings, so reduce them. And then use pronouns instead of repeating the same words, right? The three examples, right? Then we also discussed this thing, one main idea per sentence, and then we discussed the last thing, that is active voice and passive voice. And after that we discussed the paragraphs, right, as a complete or as a whole unit of thought, right? Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow. Till then, take wonderful care of yourselves. Bye bye for now.
Okay, love you, sir.
Love.